All right, here we are, Sports Bit Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy every Thursday, 8 o'clock Pacific, the Google Hangout. NBA playoffs are here. We'll run down Eastern and Western Conference. We'll go over Game 1 lines that are out. We got the pucks as well. The Ducks are already on the board.
Where's the boom?
Huh?
We got no boom. We got no hey. We got no
just not on this. Come on.
Yeah, that's true.
Not
I like
yet.
the boom, so.
You ever seen anything like this in your betting career?
What?
The Anaheim Ducks have beat the Calgary Flames 27 times in a row at home. They scored less than a minute in Game 1 tonight.
that's
27 in a row, Teddy.
I remember, this is actually a true story. So I came out here I came out here twice before I moved out here. And the last one was in December of 97. And I came with a bunch of buddies. We were all turning 30 years old. And we're like, hey, Vegas, da-da-da-da. And I was came out here thinking that I was going to do it. And there was one guy in the group who, of the group of us, when we got out of school, he was the one who probably had the worst job and didn't necessarily do that well. And, he was broke, is what I'm trying to say. So he came here the first day, right? This is a short story long. The first night we got into town, the Red Wings had beaten the Oilers, I think it was 23 consecutive time, and they were minus 230 or whatever it was. He's like, he bet every dollar that he had. He's like, Red Wings are going to win this game. They always beat the Oilers. And, of course, the 23-game winning streak ended that night, and he was broke the rest of the trip, and we all had to pay for his stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yes, I have heard of some long hockey winning streaks. They haven't. But, a minute in, that's that's running bad. Who is it that keeps beating who?
Anaheim Ducks over the Calgary Flames.
All right.
It includes the postseason as well, and they're meeting in the first round. The first time I came to town, I walked by a roulette table, and Red had hit 19 in a row.
Oh, you didn't start betting black. Please tell me you didn't start.
3 trips to the ATM. Trips to the ATM. It still didn't come up. That's when I learned you always bet with the streak. Not against the Teddy covers.
Sure. I have a roulette ATM story early on as well. In the but that's one to save. That's probably might be my worst gambling story. Because I had a method, dude. It worked. I had a system. It always worked.
Sure you did. All right, let's go.
Until the one time it didn't work, and that was
that's right. It always gets you. Yeah. Or Billy Walters, you got to get a rigged roulette wheel, a biased wheel. All right, all your questions are welcome. Get in here, rapid fire, whatever you want to talk about. And hey, we can bet on the NFL draft here in Vegas too. So let's make some money. NFL hockey and the NBA playoffs. The first game to start Saturday afternoon. Cleveland at home against the Pacers. Cleveland 8.5, 213 the total. Money on the Pacers on a series price, right?
Yeah, I mean, it opened, I saw Indiana plus $8 at 5 dimes earlier. 5 dimes, that's plus 635 now. Westgate's at 7. Penny's at plus 755. It's interesting to see Penny with the highest price on the favorite and the highest price on the dog there. Of course, when we talk about the books that we look at to try to get a sense of who the squares like, who the sharps like, Penny is definitely a leading indicator book, a book that caters to professional bettors. And the number of Penny says Cleveland's going to win the series, obviously. That Indiana may not be as live as people think they are going into that, but and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I like the Pacers with Lance Stevenson. We talked about it on Sportsbook yesterday, or was that today's show? We talked about it. It was today's show. We talked about Stevenson and how good they've been since he got there, and the great quotes from Paul George talking about how he energized the bench, and the team's playing at a different level right now. But to win the series, I mean, maybe Pacers plus the points. Cleveland is vulnerable, but they're going to hit. I mean, the one thing the Cavs are going to do, they're going to hit a bunch of threes. And they're going to have a game or 2 games or 3 games. They're lighting it up from downtown, and you can't beat that team in that.
That's where I was going. This total's too low. In the 3 wins, Cleveland's averaged 127 points per game in the 3 wins. One of those did go to double overtime. Yeah. But both of these teams will get up and down. I think you see a ton. Not to mention Cleveland's been horrible on defense as well. The second game on Saturday, Toronto is 7, 201.5 the total. Toronto minus $4 series price. I like this team a lot. We've talked about them on sports defensively. They're doing a great job defensively.
I'm really surprised by the series price here. This opened lower than even. There wasn't even a $4. It was like a minus 360 on Toronto, and I thought that was cheap. I mean, not that we're going to look at the Bucks as a team that can compete, but Raptors have been here before. Milwaukee hasn't, and that matters a lot in the first round. It really does. though we have seen Toronto lose the must-win games at home more than once in recent seasons. But the Raptors are a good notch or two better than the Bucks, and I thought that series price was a little bit cheap.
San Antonio.
Game one, again, when you ask me about the series versus game one and game one versus series, if I think the series is cheap, I think game one is cheap. You know, I mean, there's a direct correlation between the game one number and the series price.
Remember, Toronto comes out. It takes them a while to get going in the playoffs. They always seem to lose game one at home, and they're playing from behind in a series. It happened last year against Indiana. I think they lost game one at home against Miami, too.
I will look and find out.
Look that up. I know they lost game one to Indiana. San Antonio 191 at home against Memphis. Spurs 1,100 series price.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, Memphis played. Let's be real. They played bad basketball down the stretch. I'm not convinced they have the switch they're going to flip on here in the postseason. I'm really not. But San Antonio has a fundamental flaw that makes it very difficult for me to lay points with them. That makes it very difficult for me to lay 11-1 with them in a series price, being that they have no defense on opposing point guards. It's a real problem. It hasn't gotten any better, and it's something we've talked about repeatedly. So as a series, Spurs Grizz, you know, that's the NBA TV series. You know, that's not the one we're going to see a lot. And I can't imagine, obviously you watch, but going into that series, it's not a series that I go in with a game plan where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be looking for spots to bet Memphis or looking for spots to bet San Antonio. It's two teams that I don't want very much right now. So that's my initial take.
And the late game, Saturday night, Clippers 200.5 at home against the Jazz. This is cheap. Clippers series price minus 195. They have owned the Jazz, and they've always done. I think where's my damn stat? They have always won in Utah, with the exception that long streak came to an end the last time they played in Utah. But the Clippers blew a big lead in that game. Where is it? Clippers have won 9 out of the last 10 in Salt Lake, going back to 2012. They owned it. They owned the Jazz.
Sure, but comparing the Jazz in 2012 and 2013 and 2014 and 2015, I'm not going to compare that Jazz team to this Jazz team. This Jazz team's a lot better. Real quick, I got the Raptors open. You asked me, they lost the opener against Indiana in round one last year. They were 7-point chalk, just what they are now against Milwaukee. They lost that game by 10. In the second series against Miami, yes, you guessed it, they're -4 at home, and they lose that game by 6 in overtime.
So all series in 7. All right.
Yeah. So there you go. And you want me to go back further than that?
What? For whatever reason, yeah. I see what you're saying.
And they lost at home to the Wizards. And remember, they got swept out of the playoffs by the Wizards in the first round of the year before that.
Yeah. And then they lost at home to the Nets with Paul Pierce. Yeah. That Nets team, Pierce hit the dagger. The Clippers have blown them out twice this year. And the other game, they blew a big lead, too. So this is a tough matchup for the Jazz. Snyder did a good job, but the Clippers are cheap here. Not to mention, as we talked about today on Sportsbook, they're not going to get by Golden State. If the Clippers lose this series, they got to blow it up. They're blowing that whole thing up.
That price is – I'm with you on the concept of that price being cheap. Utah's got some good advanced metrics that are going to show up nicely for some of this stuff that I think is definitely influencing this number. And, of course, defensively, Jazz have been head and shoulders ahead. I mean, the whole thing – yes, the Clippers for the last 5 years have been a lot better than Utah. I don't know if that's the case in this series, and they deserve to be favored. They obviously will get to Game 7 at home, which matters. Should there be a Game 7? But it's not like the Clips have been rolling through the playoffs every year. It's not like Chris Paul is like, oh, yeah, there's a winner. You know, I mean,
never been to a conference final. He's like Ovechkin, never been to a conference final. So that could be low scoring. Jazz are at the bottom in pace. This one won't be. This starts today, Sunday. Hawks, Wizards 5, 211 the total. And I lost my series price. What do you have for a series price?
I got Wiz -$2, anywhere to -220, plus 180 on the take back for Atlanta.
All right. I think it should be high scoring. Great job by the Hawks. After it looked like the wheels came off there. Remember, they lost to the Nets.
Yeah, it was
0-8 straight up without Millsap. Then they closed with a winning streak before they sat people in the final game.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta's been a difficult team for me. To be honest. I mean, Washington's a team we made a bunch of money with, and then they tailed off down the stretch. So one thing the Wizards did, and Scott Brooks did very effectively in the month of April, he made sure that his starters didn't get a ton of minutes. So I think the Wiz come into this series very, very fresh, and they are a team that has at least some success in coming out of these playoff in the first round series the last couple of years. So is Atlanta, though. I mean, you don't want to sell that. And this Hawks team down the stretch has played as good as anybody in the East. Whereas 2 weeks ago we were saying this is the worst team. Let's bet against them as soon as they get into the postseason. So I mean, Atlanta literally, in terms of a game score, or a grading, I've got the Hawks with a bunch of game scores way down here and a bunch of game scores way up here, and not that many in between. They're either good or bad, which sometimes makes it difficult to bet. But honestly, my initial gut there is look at Atlanta plus the points. That team's playing as good as anybody.
Now here we go. Warriors 14.5, 222.5 at home against Portland. Nurkic yet to be medically cleared.
Yeah, I don't want. I mean, again, it's one of these series. It's going to be very hard to bet. I'm not excited about taking the Blazers plus all those points. Not without their big man. I mean, they're not the same team that went 12-3 down the stretch and earned their playoff spot without the big man who was so dominant and who really legitimately changed their season. But with Golden State, I mean, there's no bargains on the Warriors. They're going to be a hard team to back at home. And if you're going to back them at home, you're going to cash a couple for sure, but you're also going to have a couple of games where they're up 18 with 3 minutes left and they win by 12 and you don't cash. And there's nothing you can say about that. That's the nature of laying those type of prices in the NBA playoffs.
All right, two more. Boston 8, 207.5 the total. There's some 7.5s out there. They split the season series. Home team won all 4 games. How about this price for a 1 seed against an 8?
Yeah, this is not your typical 1-8 price. And I was trying to think what the Knicks Miami was back in the day. Remember when the Knicks beat the Heat, was at 99 and ended up going to the finals?
Beat them twice.
As the 8 seed. What? But
did you remember them twice?
Yeah. But it was the one. But the 1 year they made it all the way to the finals and lost to San Antonio. That was the Spurs' first title, and that was when the Knicks came out of nowhere, right? Mm-hmm. That was 99. I do not, unfortunately, remember the series price on that. And when you look for stuff like that, Paul, I got records that go back years. But I don't have stuff pre-2000 for just about anything, and it's hard to find accurate numbers. So I didn't see anything on it, but it's as cheap as it gets, for a number 1 seed against a number 8. But as we, another thing we talked about on Sportsbook is success that the Bulls have had against the top 2 seeds in the East this year. 6-2 straight up in those ball games. And Boston has not been a good home favorite this year.
And the last one, TNT Sunday night. Look at this, Houston and OKC. Houston 7.5, 228.5 the total. Rockets $4 series price. They should win the series, but that's too high.
I don't think it's too high. I think Houston is that much better than Oklahoma City. And if you're a Rockets believer, like I think you are, why do you think that's too high? I mean, maybe
because 3 of the 4 games were close.
Yeah, they were close, but Harden's the closer, man. Here's a bet I don't want to make. Under. Under would be just
228.
Of course, they know that's the whole point. No one wants under in this game. That's why the number is where it is. You think there's value there?
Low scoring too. So I mean, the last one was bananas on that Sunday ABC game. All right, here we go. Get in here, guys. It's Google Hangout, Sports Spit, Pauly and Teddy, betting insight today. How about those caps? Mark Thompson checking in. They needed that one. My God. The issues, I don't know what you compare this to. The Buffalo Bills, the Atlanta Braves, who knows? But the Capitals always have the best record, and they can't do anything in the playoffs. They survive in overtime on a fluke goal to get past the Maple Leafs. I know a lot of people thought the Maple Leafs could make some noise, but they lost on the final day of the regular season. So they draw the Caps, who had, I think, 118 points. And they were right there. They had a 2-0 lead. And then it was like the Oilers, 2-0 lead. They don't score the rest of the game and get beat in overtime.
So here's my question with Washington. Let me ask you one quick question about the Caps. Because, again, I'm not a hockey guy, but the Caps are the one team that I follow just because my nephew's a big Caps fan. And I got a little Caps. He was on the little Caps all the years. I got a little Caps jacket on. And I'm very familiar with the fact that every year Washington makes the playoffs. Every year they have the great team. And every year they get eliminated. Why? Yes. I mean, why does that happen for like a decade on end? How does that? Is it like the situation where 27 straight wins for Anaheim?
I don't know.
I mean, why do those things happen? Why are the Caps always so good and then not so good?
Chokers. I mean, why were the Atlanta Braves the best team? Mm-hmm. But other than the 1 year, they couldn't win the couldn't even get to the World Series.
Sure, Atlanta with 2-0. The Braves 2-0 and going home against the Yankees. That's the one I remember. And I mean, Don't know.
Yeah, the Leyritz home run. That's right. I don't know. I mean, you had Maddox and Smoltz and Glavine, and you only won it
Who all
one
had
time.
a bunch of miserable postseason starts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, explain that. Maddox is one of the best pitchers ever.
Sure.
He was below average, downright horrible sometimes in the postseason. I don't know.
Smoltz had the best postseason start. Him and Jack Morris in Game 7 of the Twins Blue Jays World Series, right? No, who was that? Twins.
It was Smoltz.
Yeah, it was Smoltz and Morris. Smoltz and Morris. Yes, yeah, that was as good a game as I've ever seen pitched.
Yep, I'm with you on that one. Okay. Listen to Sports Pitch Show today. Agree with Teddy on the Clippers and their chances against the Jazz. Series price $2.25 for the Clippers. Good price. I saw $1.95. That's a better price. Although Teddy just doesn't thinks that Jazz have a shot in that one. But I think
the Jazz have a puncher. Look, Utah is younger and more athletic, and LA had the benefit of facing a real easy schedule in April. The Clips deserve to be chalk. I'm just saying I'm not saying Utah has no chance. They're live in that series, especially given the fact that, Paul has consistently found ways to lose these type of series throughout the course of his playoff career.
All right. There was a bunch of questions that had disappeared. What happened, Justin? Did they go? Are we getting so many questions that they've gone? There was a bunch of questions that aren't there anymore that I was gonna go.
Scroll up, dude. Scroll up. Let's see. You want me to go?
I have been, yeah. Not much there. All right. Buy Direct Sports. Cleveland wins the East. There's another one here. Toronto 10-1 to win the East. We have a mutual friend who thinks Toronto's going to win the East. Loves them. Loves Toronto. Although they're going to face Cleveland in the second round, though.
I mean, for Toronto, it's as much here as anything, and whether the NBA will let them.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some crazy calls over the years. You remember that Bucks Sixers Game 7 when Milwaukee was the better team, but Allen Iverson was the superstar?
Yeah. That was horrible.
Sure. Well, I mean, whatever. We got the Kings, Lakers, the whole 9 yards. Toronto, personnel-wise, matches up well with Cleveland. They're live. Matthew Neal, I feel like the Angels have been exposed already because they got walloped today. I think LA's going to hit. The Angels have been an over machine the first 10 days of the season.
Pulling wins out of their ass.
Well, yeah, sure. They're rallying back from 7 down and then again from 3 down in the 9th.
Yep.
But when a team does that and then they do it again, you know what? Every single time the rest of the year, they're down 3 in the 9th. They're like, yeah, we can do this. We're live. And that adds up to 2 or 3 or 4 more wins over the course of the season. It really does.
Yep. Ronnie Brewer, value in Chicago because of Wade with extra rest. He can still play. I think the Bulls are better off without him. Bulls are better off without Wade. I mean, these mid-range jumpers, ridiculous. He was great at the beginning of the season. Boston has been horrible. Well, let me take that back. Boston's been average for 6-7 weeks. In the defense, I mean, led by Isaiah Thomas, they can't guard anybody. You got Isaiah Thomas out there who's dead last in real plus-minus at the point guard position.
Defensively, the Celtics have issues. And when you have defensive issues in April and May, it tends to get exposed. It really does. But the question is, there's been so much garbage time down the stretch of the NBA season. There really is. And the question is, what teams are going to be capable of flipping a switch? Ronnie Brewer asked, I'll make the case that Memphis is going to be better in the playoffs. Not asked. He says, I'll make the case that Memphis is going to be better in the playoffs than they were down the stretch with Gasol in the lineup. San Antonio has one player who consistently break teams off the dribble, Parker. So I don't know that I disagree with that Memphis has a chance. They have the capacity to turn that switch on. They're just not that good. I mean, that's the problem with the Grizzlies, is that their A game is, with Marc Gasol playing at the top of his game, their A game's fine. Because Marc Gasol hasn't been at that level. No, he really hasn't.
Maybe Sports Has Balls has some good info here about the situational spots in the OKC-Houston 4 matchups. Maybe maybe Houston was on a back-to-back the first 2 road games, but maybe he's right on that one. I hope.
Well, let me ask you this, Pauly, because when it comes to the regular season meetings, I don't spend a ton of time re-handicapping the regular season meetings. Regular season is regular season. You're interested in what the point spreads were in the various venues, because that gives you an idea of where, a general sense of where the markets have valued these teams. And if you see dramatic disparities from that, you can react accordingly. But in terms of, all right, well, this is what happened in the regular season, therefore this is going to happen in the postseason. That leap of logic doesn't work for me.
All right. Mike Campbell checking in. I think the under was 23-9 when the total was 200 or higher last year in the playoffs. Hope you're right on that one. And Ronnie, again, under and betting home teams. His favorites were great bets last year in the playoffs. You got to have to do a great run with some of those dogs and unders. And I'll tell you, a guy to watch is Scott Foster, Teddy. NBA rep stats on Twitter, that streak that was snapped, I think it was last year, the year before, the road team.
The road team was covering, yeah.
No, not covering.
Winning, yeah.
Won like 14 games in a row, officiated by Scott Foster. It was like it went on for like a year and a half. You're talking 6, 7, 8-point underdogs. Sometimes they're favored, but other times they're dogs. I mean, who does that? Usually the home team gets the call. This buffoon's on the game, and the road team always wins. That was crazy. But that's something to watch for Scott Foster.
The league wants those game 6s and game 7s. All right, here's a tough question for you, Pauly, and I'm going to ask it only here because here you can talk freely because we have no sponsors for this show. Vic Simon, Pauly, why did you criticize Teddy on the ground of ripping sponsors for recognizing the fact that some operators are rip-off artists with the Masters action? Why do you think? Because we got sponsors. When you have sponsors, you can't rip your sponsors on air. Pauly knows that. I'm sorry, I was just answering the question. And he's right. You can't. Even if a sponsor does something that you don't appreciate, that's not your job is to say, all right, this sportsbook screwed up. Maybe you talk someone behind the scenes, but you do that on air, it's bad news. Can't do it. Will you agree?
It also was, it's better beware too. You have to read the sheet when you make those wagers.
Vic Simon, who are the sponsors you're referring to? Good question. We're working. That's the whole point. We're working on deals, man. Trying to put some deals together for Sportsbook. Sports have balls. No part of Portland can't rebound. Agree.
I think a couple people sending in about OKC's got problems against the small ball. You're probably right too, because it takes away. And I think Capella's underrated as well. I think he can hang with Adams, and then it's bombs.
The Rockets as a whole are underrated.
Yeah,
even now going to the postseason, everyone's like, yeah, well, San Antonio is the real competition. Yeah, well, it's. Even we hear all this. Well, I don't know if Houston plays enough defense, and there's all of this thought process on the Rock. James Harden. If you ask me right now, I got 10 seconds left. I'm gonna have anybody in the NBA with the ball in his hands to win me the game. I'm picking James Harden. I don't think he's stoppable in that spot.
Yeah,
and I think that's good news for the Rockets moving forward.
Robert Martin checking in. Hello from Canada. Right back at you. The Oilers blew it. What happened? Well, we got our Canadian teams in the playoffs so far. Odds couple fan, why can't the Dodgers hit lefties? Well, if you've been watching Sportsbook for a year and a half, or show shut out again today. Anderson shut him out again.
All right. Now this is another key point. And I don't know if it's key or not, but it's a point nonetheless. And we got about 2 more minutes we're going to go here after this. But the key point is this. Don't worry about why. Right now the Dodgers can't hit lefties. They can't hit lefties. What do? We bet under and whoever they're playing against when they face a lefty until proven otherwise. And we don't worry about why. They just can't do it. Period. Done. Problem solved. And at some point, maybe they make some lineup adjustments. Maybe they warm up against left-handers, but it's been 2 seasons now, and it's been pretty consistent. And again, we saw under money come in, big under money. We're going to talk about that on the Bad Beats, Bad Bets segment of Sportsbook for Friday. Check it out. Of course, it'll be posted. As always, usually we get it up by 8 o'clock Pacific time on weekday mornings.
Jose Garcia, Celtics over 207. I'm with you on that one. Andy, good, always watches. Thanks for checking in, Andy. I know it's not football. How much do proxies for the contest charge? Super contest. Any recommendations on reliable ones? Yes, Vegas Matty and Andy Isco and Kelly in Vegas. Kelly Stewart. Those are 3 I recommend. I don't know what they charge though.
I do. They usually charge in the range, I believe it's about $500 for a season's worth of putting in.
And then you got to give them a piece of what you
accurately. Win. And, I was going to say, and if you win, you are supposed to give them 10%. I don't know if there's anything that signs that says you have to.
Well, I think you're high on that.
No, it's a significant chunk that these guys ask for.
Not 10. I think it's 3 or 5.
Whatever it is. Yeah. Somebody asked for 10. I don't know, 3 or 5 maybe. They'll ask for a percentage. I may be very high on that 10. That was a few years back now that I'm thinking about it. So, but yeah, that'll be in the range of $500 and then a percentage of a tip if you win, which they will deserve. But all 3 of those, give the 3 names again. Isco's good. We have no issues whatsoever with Maddie. Right, Vegas Maddie, is that what he is on Twitter?
Yeah. And Kelly
in Vegas, of course. Yeah.
He does a good job with that.
Yeah.
I would look at those three people and get in the contest. Our guy who worked at Starbucks won it this past year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's no reason for any of y'all who are out there and think, oh, I can't do it. It requires one trip into Vegas sometime between the middle of July they open it up. Might even be earlier than that, and week 1 of the season. So you have to come once a year, and then hopefully you have to come one more time to cash your check.
Well, here's some of the questions. Okay, Jeremy, I'm staying on the Strip next week. Where are the best books on the north end of the Strip? Where should I stay?
Best book on the north end of the Strip. I mean, see, the whole thing is Lagasse's is so cool. Lagasse's is a cool sports book. But it's not one of my favorite books I don't end up hanging out there a lot. It's cool, but it's not user friendly. You get charged for everything in Lagasse. They're not going to copy anything. Know that. And it's a kind of sports book where it's harder. Well, it's harder to sit there. Like if you go to Mirage, you can just sit there for 5 hours and you don't have to buy anything. If you're at Lagasse, you're okay, move along. And that's not same thing with the strategy, like the book at the Sahara, where it's the burger joint, where all right,
SLS
burger, or SLS, Thank you.
That's very good. That's a good spot. I would check out that umami burger.
Umami burger. Thank you. Yeah.
Go to SLS.
But it's not the place you can sit all day and watch games. Go to the Westgate, the Superbook. It's off strip.
Yep.
But you can sit there all day and watch games and drink beer and have fun.
All right. Playoff preview coming up again. Yesterday was a Western Conference. Now we have series prices. We'll hit it hard coming up tomorrow on Sportsbet. And the Google Hangout every Thursday here at 8 o'clock Pacific. Thanks for getting those questions in. And we'll see you right back here next week, guys. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends. Monday through Friday, Sportsbet betting insight today. Thank you.
Cheers.